At 12:34, here's an update on our lead stories. Michael Dukakis is making a last-ditch effort to rally support in our area. He's making an appearance in Queens this afternoon and claiming that he's closing the gap on George Bush. New York City police say they're investigating another bias attack. This one occurred at Yeshiva University in Upper Manhattan. Police say a Jewish student was robbed and stabbed by a group of black teenagers who'd been taunting him with anti-Semitic and racial slurs. Geraldo Rivera is defending the melee that broke out during a taping of his talk show yesterday. Civil rights leader Roy Innis confronted a group of neo-Nazis spewing anti-Semitic and racial slurs. Geraldo Rivera broke his nose in that brawl.
But should an invitation to expose vile prejudice, to advocate hatred, even be extended, ever be extended, as a matter of fact? Morton Downey Jr. has been accused of putting hate mongers on the air. And he's here now to defend that choice. Also joining him with an opposing point of view is veteran radio broadcaster Barry Farber. Let's start out with you, Mort. First thing I'd like to know is, why do you give hate mongers a platform?
I think they expose themselves for what they are. I think the vast majority of the American people then know there is this thin veneer protecting us against hatred and anti-Semitism and bigotry. And we know how to fight. If you don't know who your enemy is, if you don't know what your enemy says, then you don't know how to fight him.
Barry?
Once upon a time, a civil rights organization called me back at the beginning of all the turmoil and said, Mr. Farber, would you be willing to cover our demonstration on Tuesday? I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to be out of town Tuesday. There was a pause, and he said, what if we move the demonstration to Wednesday? And I decided right then and there that I was going to try to be too much of a reporter to cover anything that depended that much on me. Now, Lech Walesa and Solidarity are not big news in Poland because the Soviet media gave them coverage. The Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia nationality movements over there are not big news because the Soviet media decided to give them attention. That's legit. But the skinheads are important only because they are given attention by the media. Now, they've got the right to speak, but they don't have the right to appear on any place as important as the Morton Downey show, the Geraldo Rivera show, or the Barry Farber show. There's such a thing as freedom. There's such a thing as judgment. I want to foster good things. I want to foster good relations. I don't want to put the worst people in the world, on my show just because it's a big crowd pleaser.
Barry, I agree with you. You want to foster good things. You want to foster good relations. But I don't think you can see a cancer without an X-ray. And I think our programs provide that X-ray. And the eyes of our public are the machine that see that X-ray, can read it, and can know that there's trouble out there. And I've had those same guests on my show twice. Roy Innis, the Skinheads, Metzgers, twice on my show. There has never been a violent movement on that show or on either one of those shows.
But you admit it could happen.
Because I was there to control it.
Wait a minute. You have had violence on your show before, though, Mort.
I've had violence, Sara Lee, at the Apollo. Violence which was immediately brought to a halt. Violence which escalated and moved into the audience, which we gained control of. And what did we do? Did we show it on news programs? We cut out 22 minutes of that program so that we could air it without showing unnecessarily violent actions which had nothing to do with the show. I think what Geraldo's producers are doing, I think Geraldo's a magnificent guy. I love him. I'll stand next to him and fight anytime.
Morton.
But I won't show the 20 minutes of fight that they're showing on there.
Morton, I think you're a magnificent guy. I like you. I admire you. I love watching your show. I love being on it. And I'm not here to try to score a cheap debater's point. I really hope you will take to heart what I'm saying. You are playing in this country, in this society at this time with something a lot worse than nuclear dynamite. It's not a freedom of speech issue. They have the freedom to talk, but you've got the freedom not to put them on and give them publicity which they do not merit by their numbers, by their activities, by anything. They are media freaks. I would love to have them show up in my ratings, but I wouldn't want to have them on my conscience, and I don't think you would either.
Barry, I wouldn't, and I love your argument. It's very valid. But I wonder if some people made the same argument when a little guy with a mustache was running around creating hate in Nazi Germany and consequently sat back and did nothing.
Morton, you are looking at this as a rational person. You hear a skinhead preaching anti-Semitism, anti-black garbage. It doesn't impress you. You say to yourself, see, I'm exposing him before the people. Morton, they get stronger every time they get on. There are other diseased people out there who say, hey, those people must be important. They're on the Morton Downey show nationwide. Morton, you may be the most watched and listened to person in America with an opinion. The network anchormen may have bigger audiences, but they're not allowed to have opinion. If they have an opinion, they have to sneak it in. They can't belt it out like Morton Downey. When you put those people on, you impute an importance to them, which is not going to impress my rabbi, is not going to impress your priest, but there are diseased minds out there who say, hey, buddy, we must be getting big. We're on the Morton Downey show, the Geraldo Rivera show. We're in. We belong.
But, Mr. Farber, aren't you selling the American public short with that argument?
I am telling you that they are not out to win the argument with the American public. They are out to increase their ranks by a couple dozen, a couple hundred, with a good show like Morton's or Geraldo's, a couple thousand each time they're on. And
but can't the public see them for what they are?
The public knows what they are. The public can see them. They have the right to speak, but they don't have the right to be on television. There's such a thing as freedom. There's also such a thing as judgment. Let me tell younger reporters something right now. We fought something called World War II with no prior censorship. Why? Because the American free press and radio, there was no television then, had enough judgment, they had enough civilization not to print stories that were not in the national interest. I suffered no news starvation then, and we won't either if you relegate the skinheads where they belong,
then let's,
off camera.
Barry, let's make sure then that the American people have an opportunity to make that a law. Make it a law that those type of violent groups, which are spewing violence and hatred, can't appear on television. Can't be written about other than to say what violence they have created.
Morton, I would fight such a law. I'd go to the ramparts with a broken bourbon bottle. That law
Good,
doesn't
then you've
belong
won my
on
argument for me.
I want your judgment. I want you to use your power.
But
to
I am not the
things,
but
not
I am not
skinheads.
the conscience of the American people. I have to rely on the American people to use their judgment. My judgment is they're smart enough to be able to accept the bad and to eliminate it fast.
Morton, I want you to go into prayer, fasting, and meditation, and then come out and tell me that ratings have nothing to do with it.
Of course ratings have something to do with it.
Mr. Farber,
ratings have something to do with it, Barry, or Geraldo's people wouldn't be showing all this footage on TV. I didn't show my footage from the Apollo.
Gentlemen, we can't go into prayer and fasting, but we are going to have to go into commercial, though, I'll tell you that.
Okay. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us.